population terms and definitions. In order to fully understand the census and demographic transition, there are some terms and concepts we should know. Sources of the information are World Health Organization, United Nations Population Fund, World Bank, and reports of the Office of the Registrar General and Census Commissioner. Population. Population, term referring to the total human inhabitants of a specified area, such as a city, country, or continent, at a given time. Population study as a discipline is known as demography. It is concerned with the size, composition, and distribution of populations, their patterns of change over time through births, deaths, and migration, and the determinants and consequences of such changes. Population studies yield knowledge important for planning, particularly by governments in fields such as health, education, housing, social security, employment, and environmental preservation. Such studies also provide information needed to formulate government population policies, which seek to modify demographic trends in order to achieve economic and social objectives. Census. Census, term usually referring to an official count by a national government of its country's population. A population census determines the size of a country's population and the characteristics of its people, such as their age, sex, ethnic background, marital status, and income. National governments also conduct other types of censuses, particularly of economic activity. Most countries of the world conduct population censuses at regular intervals. By comparing the results of successive censuses, analysts can see whether the population is growing, stable, or declining, both in the country as a whole and in particular geographic regions. They can also identify general trends in the characteristics of the population. Because censuses aim to count the entire population of a country, they are very expensive and elaborate administrative operations and thus are conducted relatively infrequently. Indian government conducts a population census every 10 years, a decennial census, and Canada conducts one every 5 years, a quinquennial census. Population control. Population control, a broad concept that addresses the relationship between fertility, mortality, and migration, but is most commonly used to refer to efforts to slow population growth through action to lower fertility. Public debate is strictly limited, however, to non-coercive means in achieving any one of these goals, especially with regards to population reduction. An important example of this would be allowing people the free choice on procreative matters. By using various methodologies, both economic and administrative and educational, to dissuade people from having more children than needed, a stable population base can be created. Population density. Population density, population per unit of land area, for example, people per square mile or people per square kilometer of arable land. Population density is mid-year population divided by land area in square kilometers. Population is based on the de facto definition of population, which counts all residents regardless of legal status or citizenship except for refugees not permanently settled in the country of asylum, who are generally considered part of the population of their country of origin. According to 2011 census, density of population in India is 382. Population explosion. population explosion, or population bomb, expressions used to describe the 20th century worldwide trend of rapid population growth, resulting from a world birth rate much higher than the world death rate. First billion of world population reached in 1820, second billion by 1930, third billion in 1960, fourth by 1974, fifth by 1988, sixth by 2000, and according to an estimate by the United Nations Population Fund, it reached 7 billion milestone on October 31, 2011. The rate of growth was perhaps 0.3% per year in the 1700s, between 0.5 and 0.6% in the 1800s, and a stunning 1.5% in the 1900s. Some countries have experienced growth rates of more than 3% per year, doubling their population in roughly 23 years. The population explosion of the last 100 years or so has been the result of better sanitation and medical care, improvements in food production, storage and distribution, and reductions in the cost of food. The development of antibiotics, pesticides, synthetic fertilizers, and the application of mechanization to the farm have all contributed to this. Population pyramid. Population pyramid, a bar chart, arranged vertically, that shows the distribution of a population by age and sex. By convention, population pyramids are at the bottom. Population pyramid, a bar chart, arranged vertically, that shows the distribution of a population by age and sex. By convention, the younger ages are at the bottom, with males on the left and females on the right. It typically consists of two back-to-back bar graphs, with the population plotted on the x-axis and age on the y-axis. Population pyramids are often viewed as the most effective way to graphically depict the age and sex distribution of a population, or crude birth rate, the number of lived births per 1,000 population in a given year. The birth rate is usually the dominant factor in determining the rate of population growth. It depends on both the level of fertility and the age structure of the population. According to Sample Registration System report of 2011, crude birth rate in India was 21.8. Death rate. Death rate, or crude death rate, the number of deaths per 1,000 population in a given year. The death rate, while only a rough indicator of the mortality situation in a country, accurately indicates the current mortality impact on population growth. This indicator is significantly affected by age distribution, and most countries will eventually show a rise in the overall death rate, in spite of continued decline in mortality at all ages, as declining fertility results in an aging population. According to Sample Registration System report of 2011, crude death rate was 7.1. Infant mortality rate. Infant mortality rate, the number of deaths of infants under age 1 per 1,000 live births in a given year. This rate is often used as an indicator of the level of health in a country. According to Sample Registration System report of 2011, infant mortality rate was 44. Maternal mortality ratio. Maternal mortality ratio, the number of women who die as a result of pregnancy and childbirth complications per 100,000 live births in a given year. Complications during pregnancy and childbirth are a leading cause of death and disability among women of reproductive age in developing countries. In India, it was 212 in the year 2008. Maternal death is the death of a woman while pregnant or within 42 days of termination of pregnancy, irrespective of the duration and site of the pregnancy, from any cause related to or aggravated by the pregnancy or its management, but not from accidental or incidental causes. According to Sample Registration System report of 2011, maternal mortality ratio was 212. Childbearing years. Childbearing years, the reproductive age span of women, assumed for statistical purposes to be 15 to 44 or 15 to 49 years of age. The period in a woman's life between puberty and menopause. Total fertility rate. Total fertility rate, the average number of children that would be born alive to a woman, or group of women, during her lifetime if she were to pass through her childbearing years conforming to the age-specific fertility rates of a given year. This rate is sometimes stated as the number of children women are having today. The total fertility rate is a more direct measure of the level of fertility than the crude birth rate, since it refers to births per woman. This indicator shows the potential for population change in the country. According to Sample Registration System report of 2011, total fertility rate was 2.4. Population momentum. Population momentum, the tendency for population growth to continue beyond the time that replacement level fertility has been achieved because of a relatively high concentration of people in the childbearing years. For example, the absolute numbers of people in developing countries will continue to increase over the next several decades even as the rates of population growth will decline. This phenomenon is due to past high fertility rates which results in a large number of young people. As these youth grow older and move through reproductive ages, the greater number of births will exceed the number of deaths in the older populations. Replacement level. Replacement level, the fertility level at which couples have the number of children required to replace themselves. This is about 2 children. Replacement level fertility has been fixed at 2.1 globally due to child mortality. When the replacement level is reached, population growth will stabilize in time. Baby boom. Baby boom, a dramatic increase in fertility rates and in the absolute number of births in the United States, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand during the period following World War II, 1947 to 1961. This unprecedented upward movement in fertility levels produced a baby boom that was both a result of post-war prosperity and a reaction against the deprivations of the Depression and war years. The baby boom generation had lasting effects on America. Education costs soared as this generation of children reached school age. The youth culture of the 1960s reflected, in part, the dominance of adolescent and young adult baby boomers. Baby bust. Baby bust, a rapid decline in U.S. fertility rates to record low levels during the period immediately after the baby boom. Demographic transition. Demographic transition is a model that describes population change over time. It is based on an interpretation begun in 1929 by the American demographer Warren Thompson, of the observed changes in birth and death rates in industrialized societies over the past 200 years or so. The historical shift of birth and death rates from high to low levels in a population. The decline of mortality usually precedes the decline in fertility, thus resulting in rapid population growth during the transition period. Originally, the demographic transition involves 4 stages. 1. Death rates and birth rates are high and are roughly in balance. 2. Death rates drop rapidly due to improvements in food supply and sanitation, which increases lifespans and reduces diseases. Without a corresponding fall in birth rates, the countries in this stage experience a large increase in population. 3. Age dependency ratio. Age dependency ratio, the ratio of persons in the ages defined as dependent less than 15 years and over 64 years, to persons in the ages defined as economically productive 15 to 64 years in a population. The age dependency ratio, percent of working age population, in India was last reported at 54.34 in 2011, according to a World Bank report published in 2012. In economics, geography and demography, the dependency ratio is an age-population ratio of those typically not in the labor force, the dependent part, and those typically in the labor force, the productive part. It is used to measure the pressure on productive population. Aging of population. Aging of population, a process in which the proportions of adults and elderly increase in a population, while the proportions of children and adolescents decrease. This process results in a rise in the median age of the population. Aging occurs when fertility rates decline while life expectancy remains constant or improves at the older ages. As more people live longer, retirement, pensions and other social benefits tend to extend over longer periods of time. This makes it necessary for social security systems to change substantially in order to remain effective. Increasing longevity can also result in rising medical costs and increasing demands for health services, since older people are typically more vulnerable to chronic disease. Brain drain. Brain drain, the emigration of a significant proportion of the country's highly skilled, highly educated professional population, usually to other countries offering better economic and social opportunity. For example, physicians leaving a developing country to practice medicine in a developed country. The term brain drain was coined by the Royal Society to describe the emigration of scientists and technologists to North America from post-war Europe. Brain drains cause countries to lose valuable professionals. When these people leave, their country is harmed in 2 ways. First, expertise is lost with each emigrant, diminishing the supply of the profession. Second, the country's economy is harmed as each professional represents surplus spending units. Professionals often earn large salaries, so their departure removes significant consumer spending from the country. Family planning. Family planning, the conscious effort of couples to regulate the number and spacing of births through artificial and natural methods of contraception. Family planning connotes conception control to avoid pregnancy and abortion, but it also includes efforts of couples to induce pregnancy. A woman's ability to space and limit her pregnancies has a direct impact on her health and well-being as well as on the outcome of each pregnancy. India was the first country to initiate an organized family planning program in 1952. Gender. Gender refers to the economic, social, political, and cultural attributes, constraints and opportunities associated with being a woman or a man. The social definitions of what it means to be a woman or a man vary among cultures and change over time. Gender is a socio-cultural expression of particular characteristics and roles that are associated with certain groups of people with reference to their sex and sexuality. Gender equality. Gender equality is the state or condition that affords women and men equal enjoyment of human rights, socially valued goods, opportunities, and resources. This concept is key in the United Nations Universal Declaration of Human Rights, where the ultimate aim is to provide equality in law and equality in social situations, especially in democratic activities, and securing equal pay for equal work. Gender equality does not imply that women and men are the same, but that they have equal value and should be accorded equal treatment. The importance of gender equality is highlighted by its inclusion as one of the 8 Millennium Development Goals that serve as a framework for halving poverty and improving lives. Sex ratio. Sex ratio, the number of females per 1,000 males in a population. Sex ratio at birth has recently emerged as an indicator of certain kinds of sex discrimination in some countries. For instance, high sex ratios at birth in some Asian countries are now attributed to sex-selective abortion and infanticide due to a strong preference for sons. This would affect future marriage patterns and fertility patterns. Eventually, it could cause unrest among young adult males who are unable to find partners. According to 2011 census, sex ratio is 943. Demographic dividend. Demographic dividend refers to a demographic structure where the proportion of people under 15 and over 65 is fewer than those aged between 15 and 65. The net effect of such a demographic mix for an economy is an ample and cheap labor supply, a high savings rate, high return to investment ratio, and eventually high economic growth. India's demographic transition is presently well underway, and the age structure of the population there is likely to evolve favorably over the next 2 to 3 decades. The demographic dividend could add 2 percentage points to per capita GDP growth per annum, according to the IMF. Vital statistics. Vital statistics, demographic data on births, deaths, fetal deaths, marriages, and divorces. The important sources of vital statistics in India besides the population census are: 1. Civil registration system. 2. Demographic sample surveys such as those conducted by the National Sample Surveys Organization, NSO. 3. Sample registration system, SRS, and 4. Health surveys, such as National Family Health Surveys, NFHS, and district-level household surveys, DLHSRCH, conducted for assessing progress under the Reproductive and Child Health Program.